everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be going supersonic.
Supersonic.
Yeah, we're taking a look at the life and career of the one and only Chuck Yeager,
Oh yeah, one of the greats.
the first man to break the sound barrier, officially.
Officially.
Right, and we've got some pretty interesting sources for this one, a History podcast episode that really gets into the nitty-gritty of Yeager's story.
Some great details in there.
Yeah, and then a couple of audio ads from the late 40s, early 50s.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's kind of wild to hear what people were listening to back then
You know, it just adds this whole other layer.
to the historical context.
Yeah, like what was going on in the world while Yeager was out there pushing the limits of flight.
Right, so our mission today is to uncover not just the famous event, the breaking of the sound barrier,
Right.
but all those fascinating little details, all those lesser known aspects of Yeager's journey that make it so captivating.
I think what's often overlooked is that Yeager's path to that moment was anything but straightforward.
Yeah, it's
It's a story that blends this incredible skill.
Mm.
Obviously he was a very skilled pilot, but also a bit of luck
uh-huh.
and a personality that would not back down from a challenge.
Almost like a daredevil kind of personality.
Oh, absolutely. He was drawn to risk.
So let's rewind a bit before the sound barrier.
Okay.
Back to World War II.
Right.
Yeager was a fighter pilot, and not just any fighter pilot.
Oh, wait.
I mean, this guy was racking up victories in the European theater.
Yeah, he was already a legend by that point.
And you got to think about those wartime experiences, right?
Oh, they absolutely shaped him.
I mean, imagine being shot down over occupied France.
Can you imagine?
Yeager not only survives, but evades capture with the help of the French resistance.
Talk about courage under fire.
I mean, unbelievable, right?
And it doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. He later pulls off what's called an ace in a day,
What does it mean?
downing 5 enemy aircraft.
5.
5 enemy aircraft in a single mission.
Oh, my God.
It takes a special kind of nerve to not only survive in that kind of environment, but to excel in it.
Yeah, that's insane.
The podcast we're looking at describes this one dogfight
Okay.
where he uses the sun to his advantage, completely blindsiding a group of German fighters.
Wow.
And this wasn't just instinct, this was tactical brilliance
Yeah.
and an almost uncanny ability to assess and exploit risk.
Wow.
Those qualities would be critical later on.
Almost like his wartime experience
Yeah.
was like a proving ground,
Absolutely.
preparing him for the challenges that were to come.
Like a training ground for pushing the limits.
So the war ends and Yeager becomes a test pilot.
Naturally.
I'm guessing those skills translated pretty well.
Oh, they did more than translate. They thrived.
Okay.
So post-war, with the Cold War heating up supersonic flight, became this new frontier, right?
Yeah, like the next big thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Everyone's trying to get there.
And the Bell X-1 was the tool to get us there. A rocket-powered plane designed specifically to push past Mach 1.
But there were huge unknowns at that time.
Like what kinds of unknowns?
Well, I mean, could a plane even survive going that fast?
Like, could it even structurally hold up?
Exactly. Some scientists believed it was physically impossible.
Really?
They thought a plane would just disintegrate at those speeds.
Just break apart.
Yeah.
Wow, so I'm guessing early testing was incredibly cautious.
Oh, incredible. It was all about tiny incremental steps.
yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
And that's where a pilot named Chalmers Goodland comes in.
Okay, I've heard that name before.
Yeah.
But not as much as Yeager.
Right, right.
So what's his story?
Well, the podcast really highlights Goodland's crucial role in this whole thing.
Yeah.
His methodical approach to pushing the X-1 further with each flight.
So why isn't he a household name?
That's a good question. I mean, Goodland really laid the groundwork.
Yeah.
But as the Cold War intensified,
Uh-huh.
the Air Force felt this immense pressure to accelerate the program.
To get results faster.
Yeah, basically they needed to win this race.
Enter Chuck Yeager. Here's where it feels like the story shifts gears.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, from methodical testing to, well, Yeager was known to push limits.
He had a reputation for aggressive flying,
Okay.
pushing both the aircraft and himself
Uh-huh.
right to the edge.
That's got to be scary.
And that approach yielded results, but it also led to some genuinely terrifying moments.
The podcast details one flight where Yeager nearly loses control at Mach .997.
Oh, yeah.
Something about the elevator flaps,
Right.
the parts that control the plane's pitch,
Yeah.
becoming ineffective because of shock waves.
Right. It's fascinating, really.
Can you unpack that a bit for us?
Sure. So as an aircraft approaches the speed of sound, the air around it compresses dramatically,
Okay.
forming these shock waves.
Okay.
And in this case, those shock waves were interfering with the elevator flaps.
Wow.
making them almost useless.
So, like, he's trying to control the plane, but
Yeah.
it's not responding.
Imagine trying to steer your car and the steering wheel suddenly has a mind of its own.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah.
Except you're hurtling toward this wall of sound.
Yeah. That does not sound good.
No, not at all.
So, how did they solve this problem?
Well, the solution was as risky as it was ingenious.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
They decided to use the X1's movable tail to control the pitch instead.
Oh, wow. So instead of the flaps,
Yeah,
they're using the tail?
exactly. But this was completely untested at this point.
Oh, so no one knew if it would work?
Knew if it would work or if it would lead to even more dangerous instability.
So you have Cold War tensions, cutting-edge technology,
Right.
and a test pilot known to push limits facing this potentially fatal challenge.
Talk about pressure.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, remember, this is Chuck Yeager.
Yeah.
His story is full of twists and turns.
Okay.
In fact, just 2 days before the big attempt to break the sound barrier.
Don't leave me hanging.
Let's just say that Yeager's horseback riding hobby almost grounded the entire mission.
Really?
We'll delve into that when we return.
Okay, so horseback riding hobby almost grounds the mission.
You could say that.
What happened?
Well, Yeager took a spill and ended up with 2 broken ribs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's gonna hurt.
I can't even imagine.
And for a test pilot
Especially,
about to get into a rocket plane.
you'd think that would be the end of it.
Yeah, like instant grounding.
But this is Chuck Yeager we're talking about.
Right, he's not gonna let a little thing like broken ribs
Stop him.
exactly from making history.
He knew if he reported this, he'd be scrubbed from the mission,
Yeah.
and probably the whole thing would be delayed.
So what'd he do?
He kept it a secret.
Really?
He went to a civilian doctor.
So it wouldn't get back to the Air Force.
Exactly, under the radar.
Wow, that's dedication.
But then there's the problem of actually getting into the cockpit.
Ah, right. With broken ribs.
Not so easy.
This is where the broom handle comes in, right?
You got it.
I heard about this.
With those broken ribs, Yeager couldn't lift his arms enough to close the X-1's hatch.
Yeah.
So he uses a broom handle to help leverage himself in.
I mean, talk about working through the pain.
Serious dedication. Borderline crazy, if you ask me.
But I guess when you're that close to making history,
Right.
a little pain's not going to stop you.
I guess not.
So Yeager ribs taped up,
Yeah.
climbs into this experimental aircraft,
Right into the unknown.
and gets ready to push past what anyone thought was possible.
It's an incredible moment.
So the flight, what was it like for Yeager to finally break through that sound barrier?
Well, that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't this big, dramatic, earth-shattering moment.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Yeager didn't even realize he'd broken the sound barrier at first.
How is that even possible?
Well, the airspeed indicator on the X-1, the instrument that tells you how fast you're going,
Yeah.
it malfunctioned during the flight.
Um,
Went completely off the scale.
So he's flying blind, essentially,
In a way, yeah.
breaking records and doesn't even know it.
You gotta love it.
That's
It
crazy.
wasn't until he landed that an observer on the ground confirmed what had happened.
Oh, wow. So someone else had to tell him.
That's right, they heard it, a sonic boom echoing across the desert.
The unmistakable sound.
Yeah, the undeniable proof that Yeager and the X-1 had officially gone supersonic.
I mean, that's hilarious.
It is kind of funny.
And amazing at the same time.
You risk your life, push the boundaries of human flight, and you don't even know you've done it until someone tells you.
What a story.
I think it highlights something important about Yeager's personality.
What's that?
He wasn't in it for the glory or the recognition.
Yeah.
He was focused on the challenge itself.
Pushing the limits.
Exactly. The sonic boom wasn't for him, it was for everyone else.
And to add another layer to this,
Okay.
the achievement was kept under wraps for months
That's right.
because of Cold War sensitivity.
Top secret stuff.
Imagine that you've just achieved this incredible feat, made history,
Yeah.
and you can't tell anyone.
I guess some things are bigger than one person even breaking the sound barrier.
So what happens after this monumental achievement?
Does Yeager become a celebrity?
Right, like instant fame?
Well, not exactly. I mean, he was certainly recognized within the military
Yeah.
and aviation circles, but Yeager wasn't one for the spotlight.
Really?
He actually went back to active duty,
Wow.
flying combat missions in Korea and Vietnam.
So he wasn't just a test pilot.
No, he was a real deal fighter pilot.
Wow.
And he eventually retired after a distinguished 30-year career with the Air Force.
That's amazing.
It seems like flying was more than just a job for him.
Yeah.
It was a way of life,
Yeah.
a passion that kept him going back into the cockpit.
Even after achieving what many would consider
pinnacle.
the pinnacle of aviation history.
Exactly.
But as we're uncovering all these details about Yeager's life,
Yeah.
I can't help but think about those audio ads.
Oh, yes, those snippets from the old radio broadcasts.
It's kind of wild to hear about these other things going on.
I know.
Like Diddy's rise and fall.
Yeah, murder mystery in Hollywood.
All while Yeager is out there pushing the limits of speed and technology.
Two worlds colliding in a way.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about these major events.
Right.
It's about everyday life,
The lives of ordinary people.
going about their business.
Exactly. Those ads give us a glimpse into what people were listening to back then.
What was on their mind
What were captivating their attention.
during this really pivotal time in history?
It's fascinating.
And it makes Yeager's accomplishment even more remarkable, doesn't it?
I think so.
He's laser focused on this dangerous mission,
Life or death stuff.
while the world around him is grappling with all these other dramas and distractions.
It really emphasizes his single-mindedness.
Yeah.
His ability to tune out the noise and achieve something extraordinary.
So we've got this amazing story of human achievement,
Yeah.
some really intriguing glimpses into the past.
Pieces of the puzzle.
And now I'm curious, where do we go from here?
Where do we go?
What can we learn from Yeager's journey today?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It's amazing how, we start with Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier.
Yeah.
And we end up thinking about like all these different aspects of history.
Right.
From like global conflicts to pop culture.
It shows you that history is not just a bunch of isolated events.
Right.
It's all interconnected,
It's like a tapestry
Yeah.
of all these different stories and lives intersecting.
It creates this really rich and complex narrative.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for understanding Yeager's story.
Absolutely.
You can't just look at that one flight.
Right.
You have to think about everything that was going on at the time.
The context.
Yeah, the Cold War, the rapid advancements in technology.
Even those anxieties and aspirations we heard in those old audio ads.
It's like we've gone back in time.
Yeah.
Not just to see the event, but to really feel what it was like.
To immerse ourselves in that world.
So it makes you wonder, what can we learn from Yeager's journey today?
Right, because we're living in a time of rapid change, too.
Yeah, with our own set of challenges and unknowns.
One of the biggest parallels is that backdrop of uncertainty. The world was on edge back then,
Uh-huh.
facing the threat of nuclear war.
Right, and like struggling to keep up with all the new technology.
And doesn't that sound familiar?
It does, kinda. Yeah. I mean, we've got geopolitical tensions, AI, climate change.
All these complex issues.
Yeah, it feels like we're on the edge of something too.
And that's where Yeager's story comes in.
How so?
It reminds us that even when things seem impossible,
Yeah.
even when the stakes are incredibly high,
Mm-hmm.
there are people out there who are willing to push boundaries.
The risk takers.
Exactly. They challenge conventional wisdom.
And they're not afraid to fail.
Because not every attempt is going to be a success.
Right.
Not every test pilot gets to break the sound barrier.
But those setbacks, those failures,
They can pave the way for future breakthroughs.
yeah, they force us to think differently,
To innovate.
to find new solutions.
Remember Chalmers Goodland?
The other test pilot,
He was meticulously collecting data, flight after flight.
even though he knew he probably wouldn't be the one to break the record,
Exactly. But he was still playing a vital role.
he was proving that it might be possible.
And that brings us to those unsung heroes,
The people behind the scenes,
working tirelessly, often without any recognition.
but they're essential for progress.
Absolutely.
So I think there's a powerful lesson there,
What's that?
that progress relies on a lot of different things.
Okay.
Persistence, adaptability, willingness to take risks,
And courage.
lots of courage.
Chuck Yeager had all of those qualities.
And maybe if we embrace those qualities too,
Yeah.
we can break through some barriers of our own.
Maybe we'll even break a sound barrier.
That's a great thought.
It's all about pushing limits, challenging ourselves.
And striving for something truly extraordinary.
Well said.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today.
Alrighty.
Thanks for joining us on this supersonic deep dive into the life of Chuck Yeager.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep pushing those boundaries.
We'll see you next time.